Hey guys, so today I'm here with Maddie and we wanted to give you guys some updates about just things that have been going on in our lives, mostly Maddie's life, but for anyone who knows Maddie and is familiar with like watching her channel, she hasn't posted to YouTube in like 9 months or so, 10 months, it's been a while. I get questions on my social media all the time about like, how's Maddie doing? Why isn't Maddie posting? Can you ask Maddie to post a video? Maddie, can you please post a video? Just stuff like that. So Maddie has talked a lot about things that have been going on in her life on her other social media platforms, but people on YouTube who don't follow us on other things just aren't aware because Maddie, again, hasn't been posting to YouTube consistently for a very long time, or really at all. So we just wanted to give you guys an update about why that is, things that have been going on. And as you can tell from the title, it is very serious, and it also does kind of have to do with the whole like COVID pandemic. So we were also hoping by sharing this, we could potentially help people, educate people maybe a little bit more, or raise awareness and get people to take things more seriously if they aren't already, because obviously the pandemic is a very serious matter, and there's a lot we still don't know about it, but we wanted to just use our experiences to help educate people, basically. I don't even know where we want to begin, but Maddie, I guess, why haven't you been posting to YouTube? Like, where did it start? There's just been a lot, so it's like...
I don't even remember the original, like reason.
It had to do with, like, your pain, probably, right? Like that, a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. I guess so. My uploading became a whole lot less consistent. Probably fall 2 years ago almost, because I was dealing with, like, ovarian pain and stuff, which we never fully got figured out. I got, like, surgeries and all that kind of stuff. But I guess this year I was still dealing with some pain and still trying to figure it out. But more so, I guess it started with, like, being sick in March, right at the beginning of, like, the pandemic. I got really sick, and we aren't positive if it was COVID, because the only way to get a COVID test at that time was if you had traveled internationally within the last, like, 30 days, because there wasn't enough tests available. But basically, Tyler got sick with a fever and chills and felt really, really bad. And I, like, went out and I was, like, scrambling all around to get masks. And this is before people were really wearing masks or anything. And I mean, this was early enough in the pandemic where people were like, masks don't work. Like, don't use masks. Donate all of your used masks to the hospital, stuff like that.
Yeah, like, I posted a picture of myself on Twitter after, well, we found masks too that we already had as well. But I posted a picture to Twitter of myself wearing a mask. And at that time, it was like almost a sensitive topic, I guess, and I wasn't really even fully aware of that because not everyone had masks, and people were upset with me for wearing a mask because they thought that only nurses should wear a mask, and they said that anyone else wearing a mask it wasn't effective towards, which obviously kind of was not a great thing to say, I think, because now people are using that as a reason to continue to not wear a mask at this point, which isn't good. But yeah, at that time,
yeah,
like, I guess people, we just didn't know a lot about the virus and how to stop spreading it and stuff, and there's just a lot of, like, who knows, like, what was real and what wasn't. I don't know.
So I, like, found literally, like, a 3-pack of, like, N95 masks at Target for, like, $15, and I got it because I was really nervous about getting COVID. And this is before we really had many cases. Like, we were under 50 in Michigan. And so I got the mask and I was like, well, I'm very high risk because I have asthma, and I've, like, had asthma since I was a baby, so I didn't want to get COVID, obviously, because they were saying, like, people that had asthma were at higher risk of having breathing complications because it's a respiratory virus. So I got it and gave one to Tyler and wore one. And then, like, long story short, I was, like, within the next 24 or 48 hours, I was, like, also sick. So we probably got sick at the same time, but it just took me longer. And I got, like, really, really sick. I was, like, running a fever for, like, a week straight of, like, 102 to 104. No medicine was touching it. I couldn't get my fever down, and I was coughing constantly. I was, like, constantly coughing into, like, blankets and towels and anything I could use to, like, cover my cough. And it was just really miserable. So I was really sick, but then after about, I think, a week and a half, I started feeling like a lot better. And then it took probably a month for my cough to fully go away, a month to 2 months for my cough to fully go away. And then I thought it was like gone and fine until late August.
Yeah, like
maybe.
Something like
late,
that, yeah.
It was sometime in August.
And like we said, at the time, there wasn't like testing for everyone. Like you had to have very specific requirements to get tested, and Maddie tried to get tested because obviously that's like the responsible thing to do. But she couldn't find anywhere that would allow her to take a test because they were so limited at the time. So we don't technically know for sure if that was COVID, but it's like, it probably was. It's like, what do you think that was, you know? Like it was just such a long period of time to be sick and have all of those specific symptoms.
Yeah.
And then there's also like more that will lead it to also probably being COVID, but.
So when I was sick in March, I called the Michigan like health department or whatever, because there was like a COVID, I don't know if there was a COVID hotline number at that time or not, but whatever the number that was suggested that you call if you were sick was, I called that number. And they were basically like, have you traveled outside of the country in 30 days? And I was like, no. And they were like, were you in direct contact with someone who had the virus? And I said, not direct contact, but I think I was in contact with someone who was in contact with someone who has the virus. And they said, because you didn't travel outside of the country in 30 days, we're not allowed to like test you because we don't have enough available tests or whatever. So they just suggested that I quarantine for 2 weeks. In late August, I was just doing my daily deed of standing in the Starbucks line. And it was like right after, I think, Starbucks started opening limitedly to go inside to like stand in line, like they'll let a couple people in instead of doing the drive-thru, because the drive-thru lines were like crazy. So I was just like standing, waiting for my drink, and I was like, holy cow, my heart feels like it's going crazy. And I had just never felt like it was like that before. Like I felt like I had just ran a really long time or something. And I have asthma, so I'm used to like just being really winded and out of breath and terrible at running. So it almost felt like that, but I had obviously just been standing for a couple of minutes. So then when I got home, my heart still felt crazy, and I put on Tyler's Apple Watch, and my heart said it was at 186 beats per minute, which is like, I was like, is that high? I wasn't sure. So I called my dad, who's a doctor, and he was like, oh my God, that's really high. You need to watch it. And I had just started a new medicine for my panic attacks. So I like emergency called my doctor, and they were like, yeah, that's not a symptom. So just if it's still bad the next day, like tomorrow, go to the hospital. So then the next day came around, and it was not constantly high, but it was spiking up really high. So I went to the hospital, and when I went to the hospital, my heart rate was, I think, like 130. And they said that I have supraventricular tachycardia. I think supraventricular tachycardia, SVT. And they said I need to get into a doctor pretty quickly, and just to make sure like that's what it is. So I scheduled an appointment with my normal doctor. By this time they had done an EKG at the hospital and saw that my heart was like seemingly beating fine and healthy. Went to my normal doctor, they did another EKG and more blood work, and fine again, and then scheduled me out to a cardiologist who was also super busy. So then I waited another like month to get into the cardiologist. And then I got another EKG, which was fine, and an echocardiogram, which was also fine. So they ruled out structural stuff. And then they had asked like these questions like, oh, well, have you been exposed to COVID? And I was like, I think I had COVID in March. And they asked, have you fainted? And I was like, no. And they said, you know, does it get worse when you stand up? And I was like, I think it's worse in the morning and it's worse when I stand up. And at that point, when I was like this early on, that was pretty much all that was happening. It was just like going really fast when I was standing, and I'd have to sit back down. And so they're like, okay, so they put a heart monitor on me for 6 days, technically 7, I guess. And then I guess during the heart monitor thing is when like symptoms started probably getting pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think. So I like, it was like getting bad. It got up to like 200 beats per minute a couple of times, like 180 to 210 beats per minute or something a couple of times. Just doing like normal things, like walking, going up the stairs. I was the one time I'm sure that it did, I was washing my car mats in the shower.
And like, just to like put it into perspective how like bad it was literally like you would be sitting down, your heart rate would be like pretty normal, and literally you would stand up and it would immediately shoot up to like 130. Yeah. She would be tracking it on my Apple Watch. It like tells you your heart rate, and it would be like, as soon as you stand up, heart rate like 150 sometimes. Like, yeah. And that's obviously very alarming, because even for me, when I'm running, my heart gets like that high when I'm sprinting. So it's like just standing up, like that's absolutely insane. Yeah. So, yeah, it was scary.
Yeah. So, and then I forget, I think it was towards the middle of having the heart monitor on, I had a panic attack. Not related to the heart monitor, but related to panic disorder. And I fainted. And I don't even really remember like fainting. I just remember like looking down at the heart rate monitor, because I was like, my heart feels like it's going really fast. It was like 198 or something, and then all of a sudden I just felt like my legs buckled, and then I like don't remember anything except I kind of remember like hitting the floor, and then Tyler being like, Maddie? Maddie?
Oh my god, yeah.
But it was weird because obviously I'd never really fainted before. So it was like an interruption to a panic attack that usually is very hard to interrupt without like medication or like physical means of interruption.
Yeah, and just before that, the doctor was like, have you ever fainted? You were like, no. And then like soon after, you're like, yeah, all right, I have now fainted.
I'm now fainting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so after that I was like, I feel like that was the first time I was like, oh crap, like this is a serious thing. And I'm like fainting now. And that was probably around the middle of October. And just the week before I had fainted, my parents and Tyler and I all went to like an outdoor orchard, and we were walking around like just fine, like no issue. And then by the time the heart monitor was done and a couple weeks after the heart monitor was off, I was starting to have to like sit down every probably like 100 feet in the store. So we'd like walk an aisle in the store and I'd have to sit.
Like on the floor, like
yeah.
sit down.
Which is like awful normally, but especially during COVID because there's so many germs everywhere.
Yeah.
So I was like sitting down, I'd walk like an aisle and then I'd have to sit down for a couple minutes and maybe not a couple minutes, maybe like a minute, and let my heart rate go down and then stand back up, and then I'd have to like lean against a cart or like have Tyler help me up off the floor. And I was just getting like more and more unstable in general. So I'd be like carrying things and I'd like trip or like drop things because my arms were getting weak. What's the next thing that really started happening? Is that when I got like the walker and shit?
Once you like had to keep sitting down in the middle of the store, you were like, I can't keep sitting down on the ground, so I need to get like a rollator so I can sit on it whenever I feel like I'm about to faint.
So yeah, I got like a rolling walker. I would say if you have a picture, put it in, but don't, because I probably look really bad.
I'll see if we find a picture that's flattering.
They're not going
us
to.
In the grocery store with Maddie's walker. We'll post it here.
And then so I got the rollator, and so then I was able to like roll and then sit on the chair. And
she decorated it for Christmas as
well. I did.
So trying to turn it a little positive.
Yeah.
Everyone enjoys your
decked out the old white ladies very much enjoy my decked out walker. And then I don't exactly remember when the brain fog started, but that's like one of the more annoying symptoms too. I'll be like thinking, and then if you have ADHD, you might know what I mean, because I have ADHD too, so that sucks. But it's never like this. It's like you're thinking of something, then all of a sudden your brain jumps to another topic. It's like that, but you're thinking of something and you have it in your head very clearly, and then all of a sudden your brain jumps to nothing, and like you can't find what like the right words to say or what you were even saying. So that's been like really terrible. And then I guess now I'm just, the hardest thing now, I guess I got a wheelchair, and I've been using the wheelchair sometimes when I have really hard days where I can't really walk very much. We're using like the handicap parking thing now. My cardiologist has been really good. My doctor was already starting me on like a couple different medications trying to bring my heart rate down, and the first 2 medicines didn't work. And then he started like leaning towards it being like POTS / like dysautonomia, and scheduled a tilt table test for me, which I was really scared about, but I went in and I did it, and it was okay because they didn't give me the medicine that makes you faint. What is that called? I
don't know. It probably doesn't.
What were we talking about?
Doesn't really matter.
What was I saying?
Stuff that makes you faint. They didn't give it
to
you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess that doesn't matter. Okay, so they didn't give it to me because my blood pressure is already like pretty low as it is. So they said it was fine, and they said as long as they could get like a positive test without the medicine, they wouldn't have to give it to me. So the diagnostic criteria for post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome is you have to increase 30 beats per minute upon supine position, which is laying down, to standing, or in this case, I think it's like 70 degrees up on this like Frankenstein looking table. And like immediately I was like, they went like this and then went like this, and I immediately like went up 60 beats per minute, and they were like, okay, that's the information we needed. So they just like kept me there, and then my blood pressure crashed a couple times, and they were like, you can be done if you want, but I wanted to make sure that like they had all the information they needed, and so I finished it. But it was fine. And yeah, I guess I got diagnosed with that. I'm on another medication now. Oh, I also should mention, POTS isn't curable, so it's possible I'll have this for the rest of my life and have to deal with it. But a lot of people get like relief with medication and stuff, so I'm hoping that I find a medicine that helps. The hardest thing recently, which I forgot to mention, also like breathlessness when you're like just doing anything, walking, standing, just getting out of breath, is really difficult. And the other thing that's been really hard for me is showering, because I have to shower on the floor because the heat of the shower triggers my heart to go really high. So I have to sit on the ground in the shower, and when I scrub my head, I have to flip my head down below my like heart level. And then almost fainting in the post office. Oh yeah. That one time, and the woman being very scared of me because I almost fainted in the post office. So I've just like been trying to not faint, I guess. Be very careful if I feel like I'm going to faint, sitting down right away, not pushing it. Yeah. But and the doctor told you that it was most likely you had COVID, which triggered the POTS. Yeah, that's the other thing, I guess. Yeah, when I went to the hospital, literally when I got on the tilt table, the first question they asked was, did you have COVID? And I said, I think I had it in March, but they didn't have enough tests. And they said, that makes sense because we have a lot of people coming in and getting diagnosed with dysautonomia that had COVID a few months ago and then got better and now are seeing symptoms a couple months later, and they're usually like healthy young people. And I mean, back in March and April, well, I guess more like April, once I had gotten better, we were biking like 10 miles and hiking and doing like all kinds of stuff. And I'm like a full-time pet sitter and dog walker normally. And so I'm like walking miles per day with dogs pulling me every which direction. And now I can't even like use my arms to lift up a blender without fainting like the other day almost. I mean, it's scary how you went from completely being normal. We were literally bike riding, going on hikes, everything without your heart rate getting like crazy or anything abnormal at all. And literally just like one day pretty much started. Like the doctor said, a lot of people who are getting or not a lot of people who are getting COVID necessarily, but there are a lot of people who are getting diagnosed with POTS who had COVID previously, so they are pretty much linking them, thinking that COVID can trigger symptoms and cause you to have chronic issues like POTS. And even if you like look into it online a little bit, there are a lot of cases of people having COVID and then soon after starting to have like chronic illnesses like POTS. So it's just scary because obviously a lot of people just look at like the death rate of COVID, and obviously the death rate still isn't wonderful. Like you don't want people around you to die, but people will use that as a reason like, oh, not that many people are dying in the grand scheme of things, so I don't think it's like that big of a deal. It's not any worse than the flu. But you might survive, but you could end up with a chronic illness or a disability that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. And you could also give it to someone else, or someone who you really care about could end up with a disability for the rest of their life from COVID. So that's why it's super important to social distance, wear a mask, do all of those things. And that's why it's also very frustrating to see so many people not taking it seriously. Not only just like around us physically, seeing people like not wearing masks or not wearing them properly, but seeing people online and like the big social media influencers like going to humongous parties and stuff and acting like it's not a big deal, but then there's people not only dying, but becoming permanently disabled because of COVID. So that's also one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this, not only to update about Maddie, but also to show people that there's more to COVID than you might realize, and there's still a lot we don't know about it and a lot more we have to learn. So it's better to just take precautions, and even if it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, it's better to take precautions to prevent
the possibility of it being really bad, which it's looking like it's pretty bad. And I also wanted to throw in there that the reason, it's probably kind of strange that this is on my channel, but it's literally because Maddie like isn't posting to her channel, and there's just so many people asking me about Maddie and how she's doing, and I thought it would just be easier to have her here to explain everything. So yeah.
If you wanted to like look into it, or if for some reason you're having like symptoms like this after COVID, you look up COVID long hauler syndrome, I think is what they're calling it. If you look into it a little more deeply, you can see that it matches up pretty closely with like POTS and dysautonomia, some of the symptoms. And maybe if you brought it up to a healthcare provider that you're seeing that you think it could be POTS, they could help diagnose you quicker, because I know it takes a lot of people a very long time to get diagnosed with POTS, which is what I've learned off of some of the support groups that I joined, because like I feel very fortunate that my cardiologists listened to me and believed me. I mean, they like saw firsthand stuff that I was going through, and obviously I have a lot of the physical symptoms like being really uneasy and being out of breath. The other thing that I've had happen since all of this started too, that I haven't really looked into more, but I need to, but it's just been like constant doctor's appointments and stuff because of this, but I have had a pretty much constant fever, or like low grade fever, from like 99.3 to like 100 and 100.5 since all of this has started too. So I really haven't seen my temperature drop below that. And every time I go to the doctor, it's a mess, because they're like, oh, you're running a fever, you can't come in. And I'm like, oh, please, I literally have been running a fever for like 4 months. Like, it's literally nothing new. Every single day I'm running a fever, and it doesn't go away with medicine. Like, it's not anything new. So,
yeah.
You want to talk about how much of a hero you are to be dating a disabled
Oh
person?
my god. Yeah, there have been some people leaving comments. Obviously, people have the best intentions and are just trying to be like really nice, and like people obviously are wishing Maddie the best. People are saying they hope Maddie gets better, which hopefully, you know, she would eventually get better, or symptoms would be less, but unfortunately it's looking like, you know, POTS usually doesn't go away, and if it does go away, it's not until you're much older. Like your doctor said, some people in their like 50s or 60s, the symptoms pretty much subside, but yeah, unfortunately it's pretty permanent. And also some people leave comments like congratulating me and thanking me for like staying with Maddie through all of this, which is just kind of strange in a way, because it's like, why? It's like not that negative of an impact for me to like be dating someone who is disabled or like has POTS. Like, I don't know, like,
You're such a hero.
yeah, like I
How
have
brave
to
of
like
you.
help you do stuff, and I have to like push you in a wheelchair sometimes, but that's really about it. At least I'm not the one with the disability. Like, I'm really thankful that I'm really healthy, and it's like I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna break up with you now, bye. Like,
Yeah.
this sucks. Good luck.
4
But
years of being best friends down the drain.
yeah. Literally, like, the hardest thing on me is probably just seeing how negatively it impacts you and affects you. It's hard for me to watch that, but, like, it's not like I'm like, wow, I just can't deal with this, like, bye,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah, I mean, LOL.
Oh, someone asked, they're like, oh my god, what are you gonna do with your animals now that you're disabled? My animals are fine. They're all being, like, taken care of very well. Tyler has to help, and will probably have to help with big things like enclosure cleaning and stuff, where I have to lift bags of substrate, lifting my Tegu's water dish up and down the stairs, because that's like too heavy for me. Sometimes like vacuuming, because I just have a really, really hard time using my arms, especially when they're like lifted. It makes my heart go like really high.
Yeah, most things you can do. I
Yeah.
mean, like, as long as you're sitting down, you can do, like, you can feed things, and you can, like, even clean some things as long as you're, like, sitting. So it's, like, most stuff, or, like, if you're having a good day, you can stand for a little while without feeling like you're gonna faint.
Yeah.
But,
And there's, like, I don't have any super difficult animals or anything. Like, there's plenty of physically disabled reptile keepers that manage just fine to feed their snakes, you know, once a week, and spot clean and change the water dishes and everything. Ah.
There she is. There's the good girl.
Ooh. I gave her a bath the other day. That was the most challenging physical thing I've done in a while. Right? You want to say hi? You want to go get your meat? Want to get your meat? Where's your meat?
Looks
You want to get a treadmill for Christmas so you can run really, really fast and mom can? Anyway, yeah, my animals are being taken care of, don't worry. And if, like, I was ever struggling, I'm sure my darling, heroic boyfriend that hasn't left me would be happy to help me with my
oh yeah.
beginner level animals.
I really don't know how I'll manage. So anyone who was wondering why Maddie hasn't been posting to YouTube, that's pretty much why. Just dealing with a lot of health issues and going to the doctor and not feeling good most of the time. And yeah, if you don't know who Maddie is and don't really care about why she's not posting to YouTube, hopefully you can at least take from this that there's a lot for us to learn about COVID and the pandemic in general, and you should hopefully try to take it seriously and help protect not only yourself, but the people around you from the possibility of dying, even if it's somewhat slim, but also the possibility of someone becoming permanently disabled or having any kind of chronic illness that they have to live with, because obviously it's not a lot of fun, and you should just want to prevent spreading that to people if possible. So yeah, I guess that's about it. And if you miss Maddie, maybe you'll see her around on my channel a little bit, at least. You can also follow Maddie on like Twitter and Instagram, and obviously I will link her social medias down below if you're not already following her, because she is still posting on Twitter and Instagram. So if you want to like stay up to date on things going on with Maddie and her health, or just her life in general, you can follow her somewhere that isn't YouTube, because she's not posting on YouTube. She's posting everywhere else. So that's about it, and I will see you guys next time.
I won't.